Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about how to create a Wikipedia page for your company. I'm Steve from the Mather Group, and we're making short educational videos to help marketing and PR professionals better understand Wikipedia in 5 minutes or less. Creating a Wikipedia page is a very complicated process and one that comes with a lot of misconceptions. First things first, if you're an employee of a company and trying to create a page about that company, you have a conflict of interest. That doesn't mean that you can't participate, but it does mean you need to be transparent about that connection and follow proper disclosure processes. We have other resources that talk through that in more detail, and I'd highly recommend reviewing those and making sure that that connection is declared before attempting to create a page. Now, quick reality check. The vast majority of companies who are trying to create a page about themselves don't actually meet the criteria. The bar for creating a Wikipedia page is quite high, and especially high for companies. Most of the time, companies just aren't quite there. Wikipedia defines notability based on how much that topic is covered in third-party publications, academic journals, and news. In order for a page to be accepted, it needs to be supported by enough of these sources that are considered both reliable and verifiable. And those articles need to specifically focus on your company, not just mention it in passing. Now, there are a number of resources that explain what makes a reliable source. And this is one in particular that's quite useful. It's a consolidation of discussion across Wikipedia about different publications and how reliable they are. You can see that they are color-coded to help you understand whether the source is generally considered reliable, has no consensus, or is generally unreliable. As a first step, I highly recommend going through your press coverage and identifying articles that specifically profile the company and checking whether those publications show up here. If they're not listed, that doesn't automatically mean they cannot be used. And if they are listed, that doesn't automatically mean they are sufficient. But it's a very good place to start. Things you generally cannot use include press releases, anything you've authored or sponsored, anything on your own website. Those would all be considered primary sources. You want third-party sources. And even with strong publications, the coverage needs to be substantial. A quote, a passing mention, or an inclusion in the list is typically not enough. Where a lot of people go wrong is relying on things like funding announcements or light industry coverage. Even if those come from good publications, they're usually not enough. You need broader, more in-depth coverage that speaks to the company as a whole. So assuming you meet that threshold, here's how the process works. You'll submit your draft through what's called Articles for Creation, or AfC. This is a peer-reviewed workflow where you submit a draft rather than trying to publish something directly into Wikipedia itself. The draft is created in what's called draft space, which is essentially a sandbox where your article lives before it's approved. You'll typically use the article wizard, which walks you through the process and reinforces key guidelines along the way. As you can see, there is a very simple process in the article wizard that will take you step by step through the process, remind you of the important rules, remind you of the important mistakes, and prompt you so that when you submit, you're doing it with the proper disclosures. So the Article Wizard is an excellent place to start when it comes to actually submitting the draft once you know you meet notability based on those sources. Now, if we go back to the portal itself, you can see here that there are currently over 4,000 pending submissions. That means it can take weeks, and in this case, up to 2 months before whatever draft you submit is reviewed. Now, when your draft is reviewed, there is essentially a workflow that is going to be followed by the new page patroller, the person that is doing the peer review process. And they're looking for a number of different things through this process. They're going to do a quick check to make sure that there's nothing obvious wrong with the submission, like a copyright infringement or other type of vandalism. And then next, they're going to go through the content review itself. They're going to look to see if this article already exists on Wikipedia, and if it does, they'll merge the content into the article that exists, assuming that's necessary. They're going to check to see if the topic itself is truly appropriate for Wikipedia and is encyclopedic. They're going to check to see if it meets the notability standard that we discussed, if it has enough of those third-party sources. and they're going to check to see if the article is written with a neutral point of view, especially when we're talking companies that's not using promotional language. Very challenging for those of us that are so close to the material, you're seeing and working on all the content around the company, to then be able to write an encyclopedic entry is more challenging than it may seem. And quickly, for those of you that think, well, I'll just put it in ChatGPT, just understand that the community very much does not want that. In fact, they've banned the use of LLMs throughout Wikipedia for various different actions. Specifically, one of those is creating new articles and writing new content. So it is something that you'll want to take a very active hand in and have the experience to do. But those are the checks that Wikipedians are looking for. And then from there, if it meets all of the various criteria, your draft will be accepted. If it's not accepted, it'll be declined. You'll have an opportunity to communicate with that peer reviewer. And the key in that situation is to understand what could go differently in the future so that when you resubmit, you'll have a substantially improved draft that can get reviewed a second time. So that's a quick overview of how the new page process works. Articles for creations. If you're considering creating a page for your company, start with your sources, determine if you meet that notability threshold, and then from there, you can move forward with the AfC process. I hope this was helpful, and good luck.